Hi, I'm Ailbhe McDonagh and today we'll be talking again about shifting. This is the second of 4 shifting videos, so please do have a little recap of the first shifting video to see the motion that we discussed. This particular type of shifting is called a substitution shift. So we're substituting a new finger for the one that was playing. So we start on one note, let's say for example on a second finger, and then we want to substitute the first finger as we shift up. So let's say we're going to play a second finger C on the A string and shift to a first finger E on the A string. So how do we do it? A substitution shift is sort of like one of those Newton cradles. So these were little ornaments that were on people's desks, and there were some pendulum balls that would literally go like this. And you can see that the motion continues through between the two balls that hit, moving. So you have to pretend like your first finger, when we are substituting for our first, the motion is actually going all the way through and still going. So we lift up, and as we lift our weight, we transfer the weight onto our first finger and down it comes. So let's look at that in slow motion. Up, down. So the timing of this is very, very important. Fingers together, one giant sausage finger. It's an interesting concept to get your brain thinking about, because we have to come up and then our weight is transferred just as we start to move onto the new finger. So a terrible trap we get into sometimes is when we start, we shift, and then we try and switch halfway through. But you can see here that the weight has to come straight away onto the new finger. That's a very important thing to think about all the time when you're shifting. Am I shifting on the old finger or am I shifting on the new finger? So for substitution shifts, it's always the new finger that we are actually moving on. So let's try that from 3 to 1. So what happened was we had our third finger, our hand is in our first position area, so you can see our fingers are quite well spread out. But then I physically move my first finger closer. It becomes one giant sausage finger. And then as we go up, we transfer our weight onto our first finger and we slide down. Okay? So this takes a little bit of practice, particularly when you're, say, doing 4 to 1. You can see there's a lot of space for your first finger to travel across before you get going. Transfer to the first finger and off we go. Okay? So I'll just show you slowly the third finger. Second, that's an unusual interval. The fourth finger to the third. So you see what's happening. Giant finger, and then we travel on the new finger. So there's plenty of variations of that. Of course, fourth finger. That's a shift that we will find a lot, is the D to the E. You find those in the scales, and it's just a small shift. So again, travel a lot, lift the other fingers, and then slide on one. So give yourself a little up and slide on one. So there you have your substitution shift. There is one other part that comes into this, and it's the bow. So there we did a wonderful slurred motion. And we don't have to think about the bow change at all there when it's slurred. But if you're doing separate bows, where do we play the shift when that comes into play? So let's say we do a down bow to an up bow. You do the shift at the end of the down bow, and you change as soon as you've arrived at the note. So once more, have a look. Look at the shift, still on a down bow. And then the faster you do that, as in the later you leave the shift, let's do a fast one. You barely hear it, but you can see I'm doing the shift on the end of the down bow. Let's try it on an up bow. So I'm actually doing the shift at this part of the bow before I change the bow. So thinking about that is very important as well. What finger am I shifting on? And what bow am I shifting on? The old or the new bow? And that literally means if I'm on a down bow, that's the old bow. Or very rarely we do a shift called a new bow shift. Sort of in places like the Elgar cello concerto. So for example here, when we want to be very dramatic, we start the shift on the new bow. This happens very rarely. It's not very tasteful to use that type of a shift too often. 99% of the time you will use an old bow shift, which is super because then we don't have to think about that so much as an option during our shifting. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.